You're alone in a rattling elevator, the kind that groans between floors like an old man breathing. You press the button for your floor, nothing happens. You mash every button, your fingertips growing cold against the metal. The doors just stay open. Staring into that empty hallway feels like staring into the mouth of a cave, dark, silent, and somehow waiting. You lean out, peering left then right, your breath catching. "Hello," you whisper. Not to anyone, to the air, to the shadows shifting just beyond the frame. Your pulse thrums in your ears. Why won't the doors close? What are you hiding from? This isn't a scene from a horror movie. This is real. This is 21-year-old Elisa Lam's last moments alive, captured on a grainy security tape that would later ignite a firestorm of nightmares across the internet. Days after this footage, she vanished without a trace. Weeks later, she'd be found in a place so unthinkable, so impossible, it defied every logical explanation. Her story isn't just a tragedy. It's a riddle wrapped in chills, buried in the concrete heart of Los Angeles. A riddle that still whispers, what really happened inside that elevator? Before the elevator tape, before the rooftop tanks, before the internet turned her into a ghost story, there was just Elisa, a young woman with ink-stained fingertips from scribbling poetry in margins, who posted photos of cloudy Vancouver skies to her Tumblr, and whose laugh, according to friends, sounded like a startled bird taking flight. This is who vanished. Elisa Lam wasn't just a 21-year-old Canadian student. She was a kaleidoscope of contradictions, like all of us. She burned bright, a bookworm who devoured Haruki Murakami novels in coffee shops, an adventurer who'd hop solo onto Greyhound buses just to see where they'd take her. She dreamed of becoming a writer. Her blog, The Ether Fields, was filled with vibrant travel snapshots, golden California beaches, misty redwood forests, and raw, aching confessions about her silent war with bipolar disorder. She wrote about the crushing weight of depression, days where getting out of bed felt like scaling a mountain. And she wrote about the terrifying electric highs of mania, when her thoughts raced like hummingbirds and the world felt too sharp, too loud. Medication helped, but it was a fragile balance. In January 2013, she packed her backpack, kissed her family goodbye, and headed south. A solo journey down the West Coast. A pilgrimage for inspiration, maybe, or just proof she could conquer the world alone. Her last stop? The Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. Cheap, central, and steeped in infamy. For decades, it had been a magnet for the desperate, suicides, unsolved murders, serial killers. But to Elisa, scrolling hostile reviews on her laptop, it was just $65 a night. A place to rest her head between adventures. She checked in on January 26th, took the creaking elevator up to her room, unpacked her journal. Nobody, not Elisa, not the clerk at the front desk, not the faded glamour of the lobby's Art Deco tiles, could have known this faded building would become her coffin. A hotel housekeeper knocks on room 506. Housekeeping. No answer. She slides the keycard. The door swings open. Inside, a half-unpacked suitcase lies open on the bed. A toothbrush sits damp by the sink. A paperback novel, spine cracked open, rests face down on the nightstand. Like someone just stepped out for coffee and never came back. This was Elisa's room. Frozen in time. January 31st, 2013. Checkout day. Elisa Lam didn't appear at the front desk. Her keycard went unused. Her bed remained unmade. For days earlier, she'd been full of plans. Texts to her family mentioned sightseeing, maybe catching a bus to Santa Monica. Now only stillness. An eerie, waiting stillness. Her parents, thousands of miles away in Canada, felt the dread first. Elisa was diligent. She called. She texted. Silence wasn't like her. Not when she was traveling alone. Panic set in fast. Frantic calls flooded the Cecil's front desk. Have you seen our daughter? Elisa Lam. Room 506. The answers were hollow. No, ma'am. She hasn't been seen. LAPD arrived. They swept room 506. Nothing stolen. No signs of a struggle. No overturned chairs, no scuff marks, no blood. Just the ordinary clutter of a traveler paused mid-journey. Her wallet, passport, medications, all left behind. It was as if she'd simply evaporated. Detectives canvassed the lobby, the grim hallways, the seedy streets around Skid Row. They showed her photo. Bright eyes, shy smile. You seen this girl? Blank stares. Shrugs. Nah, man. The Cecil Hotel absorbed the chaos without a flinch. Its walls had seen this before. Suicides leaping from windows, the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez living here during his reign of terror, bodies found in rooms. It was a place that thrived on darkness. And now it had swallowed another soul. Whole, without a sound, no scream, no clue, just that terrible, echoing silence, like the hotel itself was holding its breath. February 19th, 2013. The LAPD releases 4 minutes of security footage. Grainy, time-stamped, 1:38 a.m., the night Elisa vanished. It wasn't evidence. It was a haunting, and it showed a young woman dancing with shadows on the edge of madness. Watch the tape. It starts so ordinary. The elevator doors slide open. Empty. Harsh fluorescent light spills onto the worn carpet of the Cecil's 4th floor. Then Elisa steps inside. Just a young woman in a red hoodie, dark jeans. Alone. She turns, facing the panel. She presses a button. Maybe her floor. Maybe the lobby. It doesn't matter. The doors don't close. They just stay open. Like the elevator's broken. Or like it's waiting. Elisa glances out into the empty hallway. Nothing moves. No sound. Just stale hotel air. She presses another button. Then another. Her fingers move faster now, jabbing at the panel. Click, click, click. Nothing happens. The doors won't budge. She leans out, peering down the long, dim corridor to her left. Her head tilts. Listening. Watching. She pulls back inside. This is where it changes. Where ordinary fear twists into something else. She ducks back out into the hallway, completely out of view. Gone. For seconds. Then she jerks back into the elevator frame, fast. Like something startled her. Like something's out there. She presses herself flat against the back wall of the elevator, hiding from the open doorway. Her eyes are wide, fixed on the hallway. Her hands come up. Not fists. Not claws. But fingers splayed, twisting in the air. Gesturing? Talking? Arguing with someone, or something we cannot see. She steps forward again, cautiously, towards the open doors. She peers down the hallway once more. Longer this time. Her body language shifts, tense, alert, almost crouched. Like an animal sensing danger. She waves one hand sharply out into the emptiness. A dismissive flick? A warning? A plea? She ducks back in. Presses more buttons. Frantic. Desperate. Click, 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 click. The doors still don't close. She steps out again. This time, she walks fully into the hallway. To the right. Away from where she looked before. She moves with purpose. But it's a strange purpose. Almost playful. She walks on tiptoes. She spins. Her arms move in a fluid, almost dance-like motion, sweeping through the air beside her. Is she imagining a partner? Is she lost in a private world? Or is she trying to confuse, to evade, an unseen pursuer? She pauses, looks back towards the elevator. Then she vanishes, completely out of the frame, gone down the dark hallway. The elevator remains. Empty. The doors stay stubbornly, eerily open. Seconds crawl by. 10, 20. Nothing moves. Just that empty rectangle of light spilling onto the carpet. Then, finally, with a mechanical sigh, the doors slide shut. The elevator sits there. Still. Silent. Waiting for a passenger who will never return. Elisa Lam was never seen alive again. These 4 minutes became the internet's obsession. People slowed it down. Zoomed in. Brightened shadows. They saw ghosts in the grain. Demons in the distortion. They argued. Was she hiding? Was she playing? Was she talking to a killer just out of shot? Was it a psychotic break? Why didn't the doors close? The truth? The tape doesn't give answers. It only shows a young woman, alone in a cheap hotel, caught in a moment of profound and terrifying disconnection. From reality? From safety? From herself? We see the frantic press of buttons against uncaring metal. We see gestures thrown into an empty void. We see the desperate, lonely choreography of fear playing out in a flickering box of light. And then silence. The most chilling part isn't what we see. It's what we don't see. What waited in that hallway. What lived inside her mind in that fractured moment. What finally made her walk away from the light into the dark, towards an end too horrifying to imagine. The elevator tape is a shattered mirror. We stare into it and see our own deepest fears reflected back. The fear of being hunted. The fear of losing control. The fear of being utterly, terrifyingly alone in a place that should be safe. It's not just footage. It's the last glimpse of a soul adrift in a storm only she could see. And the question it leaves behind hangs heavier than any answer. What did Elisa Lam see in that empty hallway? It started with a sip of water. A guest at the Cecil lifts a glass to their lips. They pause. Swallow. Something's off. It tastes stale, metallic, like pennies in rust, a faint, sickly sweetness underneath. They spit it out. Complaints ripple through the hotel. The water tastes foul. The pressure's weak, just whispers of discomfort. Until February 19th, 2013. The whispers became a scream. Weeks had crawled by since Elisa vanished. The initial police search had gone cold. The elevator tape haunted the internet, but offered no answers. Life at the Cecil, grim as ever, trudged on. Then the water turned bad. Guests grimaced, brushing their teeth. Showers dribbled weakly. The taste clung, a sour, decaying tang impossible to rinse away. The complaints piled up at the front desk. Fix it. Maintenance finally listened. They traced the pipes upwards, floor by creaking floor, towards the roof. Up there, under the harsh Los Angeles sun and the constant drone of downtown traffic, sat the Cecil's lifeline. For massive, dark green water tanks. Each one big enough to hold thousands of gallons, feeding every tap, every shower, every toilet in the decaying building. A worker climbed the metal stairs to the roof access door. Locked. He fumbled with the key. The lock turned stiffly. He pushed the heavy door open, stepping out onto the gravel-strewn rooftop. The city sprawled below, oblivious. He walked towards the tanks. They loomed like giant, forgotten coffins. The lids were heavy, round metal hatches. Sealed. He grabbed the handle of the nearest tank, took a breath, heaved it open. Sunlight stabbed down into the dark water inside. And there she was, Elisa Lam, floating face up just beneath the surface. Naked. Her skin was ghostly pale, almost blue. Her dark hair fanned out around her head like seaweed. Her eyes were closed. She looked peaceful, like she was asleep. But the smell hit him like a physical blow. Thick, sweet, rotten. The smell of death dissolved in water for weeks. He stumbled back. Shock froze his voice. Then the horror hit, and he screamed. The discovery ripped open the case with brutal force. Elisa Lam hadn't vanished. She'd been here, in the water supply, for nearly 3 weeks. While guests drank, cooked, and bathed in it, the sheer, stomach-churning reality of it was almost too much to grasp. But the shock quickly turned to disbelief. How? The rooftop door had been locked. Investigators confirmed it. The worker needed a key to get in. How did Elisa get past a locked door? The tanks themselves were huge, roughly 4 feet wide and 8 feet tall. The opening lid was heavy, set high up on the tank's side. To reach it, you needed the ladder bolted to the tank. But the bottom rung of that ladder sat a daunting 5 feet off the roof. Too high for someone of Elisa's height, around 5 feet 3 inches, to easily reach and climb without a boost. Even if she dragged something over. How? Why? Then the lid itself. It was heavy steel. Investigators tested it. It took significant effort to push open from the outside. Opening it from the inside while submerged, nearly impossible. And yet, it was found closed. Secured. How did she get in? Did someone close it after? And why was she naked? Her clothes, the red hoodie, dark jeans, underwear, were never found. Had she undressed herself? Was she forced? Thrown in? The water was cold. Was it shock? Mania? Something else? The autopsy report arrived like a cold, clinical slap. Cause of death, drowning. Manner of death, undetermined. No drugs in her system. No significant physical trauma. No signs of a struggle on her body. No evidence of sexual assault. Just water in her lungs. The report offered no clues, only deepened the dread. It confirmed her death, but erased simple answers. How does a young woman, battling mental illness but physically unharmed, end up naked, inside a locked rooftop area, climbing a ladder she can barely reach, opening a heavy tank lid, climbing inside, and drowning without a single mark on her? The foul-tasting water wasn't just a complaint. It was the awful, undeniable signal. Elisa hadn't disappeared into thin air. She'd been hidden in plain sight, dissolving silently in the dark while the city drank her down. The Cecil Hotel hadn't just swallowed her soul. For weeks, it had forced everyone inside to swallow the terrible, lingering proof of her death. And the question echoed louder than ever. What nightmare unfolded on that roof? Not of rain, but of voices. Millions of them, screaming theories into the void. The elevator tape wasn't just footage. It was a spark thrown into a tinderbox of fear and fascination. And the internet caught fire. The moment Elisa's body was found, the questions exploded. But answers? Those vanished like smoke. In that vacuum of certainty, madness took root. Conspiracies bloomed overnight. Wild, dark, desperate stories trying to make sense of the impossible. First came the ghosts. The Cecil Hotel wasn't just old. It was cursed. It stood in the shadow of Los Angeles's darkest legends. The Black Dahlia, Elizabeth Short, was last seen alive barely a mile away in 1947. Her murder just as brutal, just as unsolved. Serial killers like Richard Ramirez and Jack Unterweger had called the Cecil home. Death seeped from its walls. Was Elisa another victim of the hotel's hungry ghosts? Did something old and wrong reach out from its grim history and pull her into the dark? People swore they saw shadowy figures in the grainy elevator tape. A distorted face in a reflection. A hand reaching from the darkness just beyond the frame. The Cecil's past wasn't just history, it felt alive and hungry. Then came the whispers of foul play. Someone did this. But who? Fingers pointed at a troubled hotel resident, a struggling musician named Morbid. He'd posted disturbing lyrics online about death in water tanks. He knew the hotel's layout. Police questioned him, cleared him, but the internet jury wasn't convinced. Suspicion fell on hotel staff, maintenance workers with roof access, night clerks with shifty eyes. Was it a random predator? A calculated killer hiding in plain sight? The locked roof door became proof. Someone had to let her in or lock her in. Her missing clothes fueled it. Someone stripped her. Someone hid them. The lack of trauma on her body? A cover-up. A careful killer. For others, the answer wasn't in the shadows of the Cecil, but in the shadows of Elisa's own mind. She battled bipolar disorder. Her blog documented the terrifying peaks and crushing valleys. She'd stopped taking her medication. Could this have been a psychotic break? A terrifying episode where reality shattered? The elevator tape showed behavior that seemed erratic, paranoid, disconnected, hallmarks of mania. Did she truly believe she was being chased? Did the mania give her a terrifying, impossible strength to climb that high ladder? Did it make the dark water seem like safety? Did she undress because the mania convinced her she was burning up? Her own mind, they argued, was the unseen monster in the hallway. And then, the tape itself. Was it even real? The internet dissected it like surgeons. Why did the elevator doors stay open? Was it malfunction? Or deliberate tampering? Why did the timestamp jump? Was footage missing? Edited? People slowed it down frame by frame. They saw glitches that looked like digital manipulation. A shadow that moved wrong. A flicker that seemed artificial. Was someone hiding in the elevator shaft? Was the whole tape staged? A sick hoax? Was Elisa playing a game? A late-night hide-and-seek? An elaborate, tragic prank gone wrong? The grainy pixels became a Rorschach blot. Everyone saw their own fear, their own suspicion, their own answer. Online forums boiled over. YouTube videos dissected every second. Reddit threads spiraled into chaos. Armchair detectives became obsessed. Psychics offered visions. Trolls spread cruel hoaxes. Elisa Lam stopped being a young woman who died a terrible, lonely death. She became a character in a global horror story. A puzzle to be solved. A ghost to be conjured. The truth was buried under an avalanche of noise. It was madness. A collective scream into the unknown. Some theories were born from genuine horror and a need for answers. Others were born from a darker place. A fascination with the macabre, a hunger for the sensational. The Cecil Hotel, with its century of sorrow, became a stage. And Elisa's tragedy became a dark, twisted kind of entertainment. The storm of theories didn't bring light. It brought deeper shadows. It showed how easily facts could drown in speculation. How a real human tragedy could become fuel for a million nightmares. It showed the terrifying power of the unknown, and the even more terrifying things the human mind will invent to fill it. The question wasn't just what happened to Elisa Lam. It became, how far will we go to convince ourselves we understand the darkness? While the internet chased ghosts and killers, the truth arrived quietly. Not in a blaze of revelation, but in the sterile pages of a coroner's report. And for Elisa Lam's family, it offered answers that felt like a different kind of wound. Months after the storm of theories, the official word came down. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office ruled Elisa Lam's death an accident. The cause, drowning. The key factor, a severe bipolar disorder episode. Here's what they believed happened. Elisa, struggling without her medication, experienced a terrifying manic episode. The world around her fractured. Reality twisted. The familiar halls of the Cecil became a labyrinth of unseen threats. That night in the elevator, those frantic gestures, the ducking and hiding, likely intense paranoia. She wasn't playing a game. She wasn't talking to a ghost or a killer. She was desperately reacting to dangers only she could see, hear, or feel inside her own mind. Terrified, she fled the elevator, not from a pursuer we could see, but from the terrifying chaos within her own thoughts. Somehow, driven by that fractured state, she made it to the roof. Maybe the door was faulty that night. Maybe a lock was broken. Maybe sheer, terrified determination pushed her past a barrier that should have stopped her. She saw the massive water tanks. In her altered state, did the dark water seem like refuge? A place to hide from the terrors chasing her? A cool escape from a world burning too bright? She climbed the high ladder, a feat fueled by manic energy. She pushed open the impossibly heavy lid. She climbed inside, and then the trap sprung. Once in the cold, dark water, the manic strength faded. The sheer, smooth walls offered no grip. The lid, heavy from the outside, was a mountain from within. Exhaustion or the shock of the cold water took over. She drowned, alone, in the dark. The lid remained closed, sealing her terrible fate. Her parents, shattered but seeking some measure of accountability, sued the Cecil Hotel. Not for murder, but for negligence. The facts were stark. The roof access was known to be insecure. Alarms meant to deter entry were broken. The giant water tanks, holding the hotel's drinking supply, sat exposed and unsecured. Lids unlocked. Ladders reachable. It was an accident waiting to happen. The hotel settled the lawsuit out of court. No admission of guilt. Just money changing hands. A quiet end to a legal fight. But money can't buy peace. A legal settlement can't silence the whispers in your own head at 3 a.m. It couldn't answer the questions that clawed at Elisa's family and at millions trying to understand. How did the roof door unlock itself that night? Was it truly just broken, or was there a moment of catastrophic coincidence? Why were those tanks left so dangerously open? Negligence, yes, but the sheer, chilling ease of access felt like an invitation to disaster. And the elevator? Who or what was Elisa Lamb talking to? If it wasn't a person, and it wasn't a ghost, was it just the terrifying voice of her own illness? That's the painful truth the coroner pointed to. But knowing that doesn't make the footage less chilling. It doesn't erase the image of a young woman, eyes wide with fear, gesturing wildly into an empty hall. It just replaces the monster in the shadows with a monster inside the mind. A monster millions battle every day. The official truth was simple. A tragic accident fueled by untreated mental illness in a place that didn't care enough to be safe. It's a truth that lacks the dark glamour of conspiracies or ghosts. It's a truth about broken systems. A young woman's struggle with an invisible illness and a crumbling hotel's disregard for basic safety. It's a truth that feels almost too ordinary for such a bizarre, horrifying end. But sometimes the most painful truth isn't a monster hiding in the dark. It's realizing how easily the light can fail those who need it most. How a missed pill, a broken lock, and a moment of profound, terrifying confusion can lead a vibrant young woman into darkness alone. The Cecil Hotel didn't kill Elisa Lamb with malice. Its neglect simply didn't save her. And in the echoing silence after the legal papers were signed, that truth settled like cold water. Heavy, unavoidable, and utterly devastatingly sad. We dissect her final moments. We argue over grainy pixels. We invent monsters and conspiracies. But strip all that away, and Elisa Lamb's story leaves us with a cold, uncomfortable truth. It could have been any of us. That's why, 10 years later, the chill still hasn't faded. Elisa's tragedy isn't just a true crime mystery. It's a cracked mirror reflecting our deepest, most uncomfortable vulnerabilities. Think about it. She was young, bright, full of plans. She stepped out into the world solo, trusting that the systems meant to protect us. A budget hotel, locked doors, basic safety, would hold. But beneath the surface, she fought an invisible war. Bipolar disorder isn't a choice. It's a storm that rolls in without warning, twisting reality, amplifying fear, making the familiar feel terrifyingly alien. Her vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was human. A human struggling unseen in a place, the Cecil Hotel, that was itself a monument to unseen darkness. A building steeped in violence and despair, its neglect palpable in every flickering light bulb, every groaning floorboard, every broken lock ignored. It wasn't actively evil. It was passively, chillingly indifferent. And indifference, when layered onto fragility, can be fatal. Then there's the tape. Those 4 minutes. They didn't just capture Elisa's fear. They captured ours. Released into the wilds of the internet, they became something else entirely. A global Rorschach test. People didn't just watch, they projected. Every frantic gesture, every darting look into the empty hallway, became a blank screen for our own primal anxieties. The fear of being hunted, the terror of losing control, the paralyzing dread of being utterly, completely alone when danger feels close enough to touch. Was it a ghost? A killer? A mental break? We argued because the answer forced us to confront what scares us the most. The tape holds up a mirror, and we don't always like what we see staring back. Our own capacity for fear, obsession, and the desperate need to explain the unexplainable, even if we have to invent the monsters ourselves. And that's the final lingering chill. The answer. The coroner called it an accident. A tragic sequence of untreated illness, a moment of profound disconnection and criminal negligence. Logically, it fits, but logic feels cold comfort against the sheer, bizarre horror of it. A young woman ends up naked, drowned, sealed inside a rooftop water tank? After behaving like that in an elevator? It feels like the plot of a ghost story. It feels wrong. Our brains, wired for narrative, scream for something more. A villain, a specter, a sinister plot. The quiet, devastating truth. That systems failed, that illness raged unchecked, that neglect paved the way to a lonely, dark end, feels insufficient. It lacks the catharsis of a solved puzzle. It leaves us with the uneasy knowledge that sometimes the real horror isn't a monster under the bed. It's the mundane cracks in the world we trust to keep us safe, and the silent storms within our own minds. Elisa Lam haunts us because she embodies the fragile line we all walk, between safety and danger, between connection and isolation, between the visible world and the unseen battles so many fight in silence. Her story whispers a terrifying reminder. In a world that can feel indifferent, and with minds that can sometimes turn against us, the distance between a vibrant life and a chilling mystery is terrifyingly small. We keep looking back because deep down, we're not just searching for what happened to her. We're staring into the dark, wondering how easily the light could fail us. 10 years later, we're still here, still typing her name into search bars, still replaying those 4 minutes of grainy footage. Why does Elisa Lam's story cling to us, like cold fog on a window pane? Maybe because when we look at her, we're not just seeing a tragedy. We're seeing a reflection of ourselves, staring back from the dark. Elisa Lam's name still trends. A decade hasn't dimmed the fascination. Not because the answers satisfy us, but because her mystery holds up a mirror to truths we'd rather not face. It shows us how thin the veneer of safety really is. We trust locks on doors. We trust water from taps. We trust the medication in our cabinets to keep the storms in our minds at bay. Elisa's story whispers, trust can break. A faulty lock, a missed dose, a moment where the world tilts sideways. That's all it takes. The Cecil Hotel wasn't some distant nightmare castle. It was a cheap room in a city full of them. Her vulnerability isn't alien. It's profoundly, terrifyingly human. It shows us the razor's edge between curiosity and obsession. We started by asking, what happened? A fair question, a human question, but somewhere along the way, for millions, it curdled. We slowed down the tape. We circled shadows. We dissected her pain like it was a puzzle for our entertainment. We turned a young woman's final, terrified moments into a spectacle. Her story forces us to ask ourselves, when does seeking truth become a morbid hunger? When does empathy turn into exploitation? How many pixels of someone else's tragedy do we need to feel safe in our own skin? And perhaps most chillingly, it shows us how terrifyingly close we all are to becoming the story. Not the teller, the subject. That wrong turn. It's not always a dark alley. Sometimes it's booking the cheaper hotel because the budget's tight. Sometimes it's forgetting the pill that steadies your mind. Sometimes it's a single, fractured moment where reality slips, and you step off the path everyone else can see. One misstep, one fragile thread snapping, and suddenly you're not a person anymore. You're a mystery, a ghost in a grainy video, a name whispered in true crime forums, a cautionary tale. Elisa Lam's story endures not because it's unique, but because it's universal. It's a stark, unsettling reminder of the fragile threads holding our ordinary lives together. So we keep searching her name, not just for answers about her end, but for reassurance about our own. We want to believe we'd see the monster coming. We want to believe the locks would hold. We want to believe we're different, safer, smarter. But the echo of that elevator door, forever refusing to close, tells a different story. It tells us darkness doesn't always come with a face. Sometimes it's silence where there should be sound. Sometimes it's the cold water rising when you thought you were safe. Sometimes it's the quiet, ordinary cracks in the world, and the even quieter ones within ourselves. Her name lingers because it's not just hers anymore. It's a question mark hanging over every fragile step we take in this uncertain world. Remember her, not just the mystery. Remember the girl who loved books and wrote poetry and laughed like a startled bird. Remember the light, not just the dark. And let that remembrance be a quiet vow, to see the vulnerability around us, to tread carefully on the line between curiosity and cruelty, to hold tight to the light, knowing how easily it can flicker. Because in the end, the only thing standing between any of us and becoming someone else's chilling true crime story is chance. And chance is a fragile thing.